to talk to you about today. Getting out of your own way. Because it's kind of interesting when you think about it. Nobody gets in your way more than you do. But in the next half hour or so, this is really cool. I'm going to show you how you get in your own way and how to get out. Nice. It's a very quick, simple thing, because when it comes down to it, here's your new philosophy of life. You ready? You are overthinking everything. You are overthinking everything. So, two pieces to what I want to share with you today. One is, whenever somebody talks about personal development, we think about ourselves, right? That's personal development. It's me. Well, guess what? You are only half of the equation. You know what the other half of the equation is?
Others.
Other people. We're surrounded by them constantly. They're everywhere. They are half of the equation. Okay? So, a quick moment about the 1-minute version of me and who I am and why I do what I do. Long story short, I spent a number of years in television news. I worked for ABC and NBC affiliates, both behind the camera, producing and so forth, and then on air for a number of years. And at some point in my news career, even though I was really good and I was moving forward and up the proverbial ladder and all that good stuff, from a values standpoint, news completely started rubbing me the wrong way. The negativity. Everything is negatively bent, and that is absolutely intentional. I was mentioning, we were talking at the table here a little bit. There are formulas as to how to negatively put the news on. And do you want to know why? You say, well, why would you do that? That's unbelievable. Every single news station in this country gets their news from one source. It's called AP Newswire. So if every one of us owns a news station, guess what? We all have the identical news. Most reporters today sit at a desk at a computer and cut and paste and pull news things off. And then they're told by a news director, now go get a soundbite locally from someone who it might make sense so we can localize the story. Everyone has the same video for the most part. It's called VOD, Video on Demand System. Oh, story 257A, good. Go to the VOD machine, 257A, click, goes into the control room. It's the third story the control people are going to put on tonight with the push of a button. So if every one of us has the identical information, how do I start getting viewers before you do? Because you're right down the street from me, right? You're just the next network over. What do I have to do to catch people's attention? I've got to start storytelling a little bit. And do you know what grabs our attention in our culture and our society?
Negative.
It's not the cute story about the little puppy that they tease for half an hour and then give you 2 seconds at the end. Oh, here's that puppy we talked about. Have a great night. Which is what they do. But they tell you about all the horrific things going on before then, right? I literally, November 23rd, 2003, was my last day in news. That was my exit by choice from the industry. Since that day, I've never watched a newscast. And people say, well, how do you know what's going on? First of all, there's really not much new going on. And if something's big enough, everyone's talking about it. You know what's going on. Try tuning out for a week and tuning back in. You go, it's the same stuff. It really is. So why am I bringing this up? Because in our society, in our culture, we have this big, big challenge right now. Because you cannot walk into a McDonald's without a flat screen TV with CNN on, and what's across the bottom of everything?
Breaking news.
Breaking news! Everything's urgent, everything's breaking. We have no information, we have no facts, we don't even know if this is really happening, but we're going to stay here for the next 4 hours. Our graphics team has already come up with dun-dun-dun, the whatever thing, right? It's blazing down the street. It's ridiculous. Bless you. And even though we know nothing, we're going to bring 47 other people on who know nothing as well to talk about what may not be going on. And then when we actually do get to reality, how do we negatively bent it? Any meteorologist will tell you it is always partly cloudy. It will never be partly sunny. There will always be a 20% chance of rain. They will never tell you, hey, there's an 80% chance of sun today. And guess what? What's the unemployment rate been approximately the last couple of years?
9%.
10%. Everyone will tell you it's 10%. Not a single media organization in this country will ever come on and say, for a change of mindset, we have 90% employment today. I don't care what school system you're from. That's an A. Is it not? Think about this, okay? Why do we care? Because that is what we are surrounded by 24/7, those messages. And that has created an entire culture of that's how we think. Think about it. When you have a day where 20 things go right and one little tiny thing doesn't go right, when someone says, how was your day today? What do you do? Oh, I can't believe this thing over here that happened. Oh, wait, didn't you get that? Didn't you win the lottery? Yeah, but do you know how many taxes I have to pay? We immediately default. It's this autopilot that we have now in our brains. If something is good, you have to immediately find what's wrong. It's a sickness, and it's what we have. We all have it in our society. So how do you change that? Because when you start to flip that switch, and instead of being told what is wrong, you can quickly flip it and see what they're not telling you that's going perfectly right, everything changes. And it's amazing what starts to happen. So I want to give you 3 things, how to look at them in a slightly different way. And when you walk out of here today, I apologize, you're going to be hyper aware of this. You're going to find yourself doing it constantly, and you're going to see it in everybody else, and it's going to start to drive you a little wacky. I promise. That's a good thing. The first thing is control. Control is a strange word, because anybody here in the last week feel out of control? In the last hour? Yeah, control is one of those strange things these days where oftentimes we feel out of control a bit more than we feel in control. There are 2 things you need to know about control. That's it. There are things in your world over which you have total control. And there are things in your world over which you have 0 control. There's not a lot in between. So what are some of the things over which you have no control? Weather. Other people's at the top of my list most days. Right? Weather, traffic, stock market. We could probably list hundreds of things. In other words, the things over which you have no control are usually the places you're spending most of your time and attention focusing on. Right? What do we have virtually total control over? Yeah, it's a short list, huh? Ourselves. That's it. And that can include our choices, our decisions, our actions, our whatever. So again, think about this. We spend so much time dealing with life, but we don't stop to think how we're responding to it. Because guess what? Life is not about what's happening to you. Because guess what? Most of that, can you control that? No. And even on those days where you think, why does everything happen to me? Life's happening to all of us. It is. Life's not about what's happening to you. Life is all about how you're choosing to respond to what's happening to you. And you know what the neat thing about that is? You have some control over that. As a matter of fact, it's the only thing you have control over. And I'll give you a perfect example. You're driving down the street. You're on the highway. And somebody cuts in front of you. You slam on your brakes. At that moment in time, there are only two ways in which you can respond. There are only two. Response number one, slam on your brakes. You start screaming and swearing and you start gesturing, and sometimes you get yourself so worked up within a matter of moments, you have to drive up next to the person just so you can look at them. What is that? Why do we do the things we do? Right? And then it makes us even more upset or angry or stressed, whatever you want to call it, because they're just going along. They didn't even know they did anything, right? It wasn't a malicious attack personally on you. You were in a blind spot. Move on. Really. But what did we just do in that instant? Who created our stress?
We did.
We did. By choosing how we're going to respond. Because if you go back to that slamming of the brakes, the other way I could have chose to respond is, glad I was paying attention, and move on with your day. Because when you choose that first response, and we have dozens of those moments to choose that response a day, dozens of them. When you're continually choosing response number one, does it end right there?
No.
No. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, you're
it.
still there several hours later. Do you know why that is? Literally, physiologically. You get stressed, you send a message to your brain, and guess what your brain says? Whoop, start releasing the stress hormones. Get that adrenaline going, get the cortisol, start shooting everything out of your brain. Goes back to caveman days. It's called fight or flight. That's what you put yourself in. And as soon as those chemicals are released, guess what? All the blood rushes to your extremities, you get ready to fight or flight. And once they're released, they have to run their course through your system. And it can take hours. We are creating that. Interesting. So let's talk about stress for a minute, because stress is another piece of this. How many of you would say we self-create 50% of our stress? 70%. 98.7, yeah. I would never say 100 because, let's be real, we live in a stressful world. Things happen, things are brought on. Stress is there for a reason. Stress isn't all bad. Think about it. Without stress, nothing would ever get done. If we didn't have deadlines or things that had to happen, we'd probably never progress, right? Stress can be your friend if you learn to use it. But we self-create the vast majority of our own stress. How? Simply by choosing how we're responding to what's happening to us. We have virtually total control over that. Stress. So I want you to keep that in mind. Okay? Perspective or perception. Isn't it fascinating to think about this? Stress and humor are almost always the exact same thing. Did you know that? When it's happening to me, it's stressful. When it's happening to you, Bill, it's the funniest thing in the world.
You're welcome.
It's perspective. Think about, have you ever spent 10 minutes running around looking for your keys or your phone or whatever, and you're getting yourself so worked up, I gotta go, I'm gonna be late, where is my phone? And someone walks in the room and they say, what are you doing? I'm looking for my phone. And they look right in front of you and say, isn't that it on the table? Yeah, it is. We can see things so differently when it's not us. We can think about it. You can look at almost anyone's life that you know and say, why don't they just do this? If they only did that, it would be fine. What are they thinking? But when we look in the mirror, we're at a total loss sometimes. Perspective. The next time you find yourself having a challenge like that, I want you to stop. This seems so simple, but guess what? It is. Try it. Try it once. Next time you're running around and you're catching yourself, you're aware that I'm in that stress mode. Stop. Take 5 breaths. You know what's important about 5 breaths? Research shows 5 breaths, just stopping. Doing that 5 times in a row essentially resets your physiology. It resets your physiology. That was a sign. Did you see that flicker or was that just me? Okay, I'm just making sure. See, it's true. I promise. It literally resets your physiology. So think about it. Breathing is one of the most phenomenal tools you have, and we don't do it. Think about this. When somebody is stressing out, what is the first thing you tell them to do?
Calm down.
Take a deep breath, calm down, breathe. Why do we do that?
Works.
Because it works. Again, this is how our bodies work. And we're so busy looking out there for all of these solutions to everything that's going on in our lives. You have everything you'll ever need to do anything you need to do. You pretty much already have it. Breathing is one of the most incredible tools you have because it instantly drops your stress levels down. And guess what happens, among other things, when you drop your stress levels like that? You can think, your head is clear, you can see that your phone's sitting in front of you, you don't need somebody else to walk in the room and go, are you an idiot? It's sitting right there, it's been there all day. It's where you always put it. Perspective, bless you, perspective. So control, stress, and perspective. You want to talk about 3 little tools that if you start to look at things a little differently, and you realize that anytime you're feeling out of control, stop focusing on what's happening to you and switch your focus, flip your switch, and ask yourself one question. Okay, how am I responding? How could I respond? What's one thing I can do right now? Stop, get clarity, take action, and you get a result every single time. We are overthinking everything. When you throw the minutia off the table and say, what is it we need to do? This. Then go do it. Stop thinking about it. Stop talking about it. Just go do it. Who knew that 3 little words that Nike grabbed before anybody else, that should be your philosophy for life. It's so simple. Breathe and just go do it. Because when you do something, just go take action, you change something. And people think change takes a long time. No. Change happens in an instant. The moment you've made a decision or taken action on something, you've changed. You've changed. You want to know what takes forever? Thinking about changing takes forever. Talking about changing takes forever. Thank you, Bill. That's what takes forever. Before we make decisions, how many people do you call? Well, what do you think about this? What's going on? Who cares? Just do something. You do it. If it doesn't work or get the result you want, stop and do something else. If it does, keep going. We know where we get our stress, and we know where we get our energy. We walk here way too often. Start pulling yourself back here. Okay? And again, you'll start to become hyper aware of this just because it's stuff you don't think of until someone says, "Did you ever think about this?" So control, stress, and perspective. Now, again, that's the part that's about us, right? That's something about you. But as I mentioned, you're only half the equation. We've got all these other people who are always around me. And do they stress me out? Yeah, sometimes I respond to it. Yeah. How do you deal with them? I have an analogy I want to share with you about other people. And it's called Get Off My Bus. Okay? So here is what Get Off My Bus is. Every one of us is born, and we're a bus driver. Okay? We drive our buses through our lives. And as we drive our buses through our lives, people are constantly getting on our buses and going off of our buses. Some of them by virtue of, family and family friends and stuff. You come into the world and your bus has some people on it, right? Some come on or off by virtue of decisions we make. We go to certain schools, join certain networking groups and clubs and chambers. We go to work at certain places. We have people there. Some of those people are on our bus, right? Some people get on and stay on a bus for a lifetime. Others come on for a moment and go back off. But this is a constant flow. At some point in your life, you need to stop and ask yourself 5 questions. And oftentimes, these 5 questions are phenomenal to ask when you're in some sort of a life decision or crisis or something. Oftentimes, isn't it weird, we don't think of stuff until, we've lost the job or there's a health issue or something else is going on that's pulling us in a very different way. I encourage you right now, whatever your situation is, to stop and ask yourself 5 questions. 1, who's driving your bus right now? Are you still in the driver's seat of your bus? Or have you gotten up and let somebody else get in that seat? Personally or professionally? Who's driving your bus? The second question is, if you look at any city bus, what's emblazoned across the top?
Destination.
Where are you going? What is your destination? What are you trying to accomplish? If you don't have clarity on that, guess what? You're wandering aimlessly through the streets like a lot of people. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Whether it be today, or this decade, or this lifetime. Get some clarity on what are you trying to do. If you don't know, why are you doing anything? Now those first 2 questions, again, are kind of about me. I need to get a little clarity. The third question asks you to turn around and look at the passengers who are currently on your bus. And that question is, who needs to get off your bus? You didn't know I had a guitar with me, did you? Who needs to get off your bus? And I always have to ask, when I say that, how many of you had a person or a name or a face pop right into your brain? Yeah, a lot. We know who those people are, don't we? We know where we get our stress. We know where we get our energy. Boy, do we walk over here often, don't we? We know who those people are. And who could those people be? The negative Nellies, right? All the people who are just, the people who just suck your energy dry. The phone rings, you look at it and go, oh, I can't do this right now. Go to voicemail. We laugh so we don't cry sometimes, right? We know who those people are. We do. And sometimes people say, well, wait a minute, I can't take Mom off the bus. You know what? A bus is a long vehicle, isn't it? You don't have to always throw someone off the bus, but guess what? Sometimes the only reason they're sitting next to you, you feel like their hands on the wheel with you, is because you're focusing so much on them. Again, what do we have control over? Pull your focus off of that and move to something else. Refocus for a little bit, and all of a sudden they drop back a seat or 2. Focus is powerful. What you focus on is what you get. Which is why it's so important not to focus on what you don't want. Focus on what you do want. Focus is unbelievably powerful. So who needs to get off your bus? And that doesn't mean you need to make phone calls and do emails tonight and say, I'm kicking you off my bus. Not necessary unless that would give you great stress relief, which it may. That literally can be, pull back your focus. Refocus. Go somewhere else, that's okay. The fourth question is, who needs to get on your bus? Because once you have some clarity as to, I'm back in control, I'm back in my driver's seat, I know where I'm headed. I at least can point and aim me. I need to head that way. I know that. Even if I don't know exactly what's going to be there, that's where I need to head. Once I know that stuff, I can find people all day long who all of a sudden, call it what you want to, all of a sudden start popping up in your life. Isn't that weird how that happens sometimes? Right? A lot of people call it law of attraction. You can call it whatever you want. When you start getting clarity, opportunities and partners and people just start popping up sometimes. It's fascinating. Who needs to get on your bus? I bet a lot of you have brought people onto your bus in a very positive way simply by being involved in this chamber. Think about it. Have you been places where you've made partners or had business relationships or maybe just had a friend? You've created a friend, some kind of a working relationship. Yeah, that's bringing people onto your bus. Who needs to get on your bus? If you do X and you've always done Y and Z because as, your own business owner, you wear 10 hats. Stop wearing 10 hats. What do I do well? Boom, I'm a marketer. This is what I do. Good. Then don't be a salesperson. Find someone who's a great salesperson who doesn't do marketing well. Phenomenal. I don't need to wear the accounting hat. I can find an accountant who's looking for people because they don't do that kind of stuff. Great. Whew. Who needs to get on your bus so that you can focus on what you do best? And the fifth question is, whose bus do you need to get off of? And what I mean by that is, anybody ever open their planners or their phones or whatever you use, and you see something on your calendar for the week and you go, oh, not that again. Or you look at something and go, oh, love it. Again, we know where we get our stress. We know where we get our energy. Something you look at and go, oh, I got to go to that thing again. That thing might have fit beautifully in your life 2 years ago. It might not anymore. And guess what? That's okay. There's a strange thing sometimes that happens between our ears. Because contrary to popular belief, nothing good ever happens up here. Get out of your head as often as you can. We sometimes think, well, I can't step away. What would they do without me? Oh, I'm on the board. I'm on the whatever. I'm part of this. Do you know what they're going to do without you?
Move on.
They're going to move on just fine. Sometimes you may have been somewhere for a while and it becomes obvious when I'm not putting my all into this anymore. I'm doing what I need to do and getting out. Sometimes when you say, I'm going to need to step down or step to the side or not do this again for another year, sometimes the other side goes, oh, well, thank you for letting us know. You've been phenomenal. And what they're thinking in their head is, we've been thinking for about a year you really needed to go. And that's okay. You've got to constantly think about, what do you need to do? That is not selfish. That is absolutely something that you need to do, because guess what? If I say yes to something I really mean no to, am I going to be the best person that should be sitting there?
Nope. No.
Never. I'm doing a disservice to them to say yes if I really mean no. And don't ever use the word try. Oh, do you realize try is when you want to say no but you can't?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asks you something and you say, would you like to do this? And you're all of a sudden out of your mouth comes, yes! Where did that come from? Or you say, I'll try. I got a million things going on. I'll try. No, say yes or no. Do it or don't do it. That's okay. Bless you. Try gives you an out. You walk in with a little escape hatch. You can say no and say, thank you for thinking of me. I'm so flattered. Look, I'm not going to do this justice right now because of what I have going on. I don't want to do that disservice to you. Let me help you maybe identify someone else who could do a much better job. And then what did you just do by saying no? They're thrilled because you told them the truth. You simply told them the truth. I mentioned selfish a minute ago. I want to, time-wise, I think probably close to a wrap-up. Is that peace out or is that 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Close though.
Thank you, Mom.
And peace
But
out.
peace too. I mentioned selfish. Let me leave you with this thought. It's another kind of a play on perspective. A lot of times we think if we do for us instead of doing for everyone else, that we're being selfish. 2 things on that. 1, you have to do for you to be the best person to do for others. If you put everyone else ahead of you, guess what? You're going to wear down pretty quickly, and then all those people you were trying to help are going to have to stop what they're doing because now they have to come take care of you. That's something called taking your oxygen first. Right? If you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks fall, what do they tell you to do? Put on your mask first and then go help others. Why? If you take your oxygen first, you can help everyone on that plane all day long, can't you? If you forget about you and you say, oh, let me just go do everything for everyone else because that's what I do, you're going to pass out. And now you're the burden on the very people you were trying to help. When it comes to being selfish, I want to show you, I'll leave you with how we're all very selfish and how you understand that's a pretty cool thing. Even if you think you're not an egotistical, self-centered person, if I took a picture of this whole group and we printed it out and I started passing it around, out of 170 people, I hand it to the first person, what do they look at instantly?
Themselves.
And what do they think?
Good picture.
What a horrible picture! Ah! They pass it to the next person. Even if they were, audibly said, oh my goodness! What does the second person look at out of 170 people?
Themselves.
And what do they think? Ah! Now if the second person hands it back to the first person and says, look at me, and you look at the other person, what does the other person say about the person?
You look great.
What a phenomenal picture! We're all completely about us. We're all in our own heads. We're constantly looking at us. What are they going to think of me? What do I look like? What do I sound like? The beauty of that is everyone else has that same conversation going on in their head. So the next time you walk into a room and say, oh boy, what are they thinking? Stop and chuckle and say, they don't even know you walked into the room. They're too busy in their heads going, I wonder what she's going to think of me. Isn't it the truth? Take your oxygen first. Life isn't about what's happening to you. It's about how you're choosing to respond to what's happening. That is everything, and it's the only thing you have control over. I hope you have some neat tips to walk out of this room with and just start using. Again, I appreciate reaching out. Thank you guys very much.
Oh, certainly.